Alright guys, this is Elmaster, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about PvP. Protoss versus Protoss. Not player versus player. So, the build we're going to be talking about today, introducing, is a very safe build, as is the theme with these. Safe and not too mechanically demanding. It is going to be a 3-gate observatory build. It's considered to be one of the safest builds in PvP and also reasonably flexible. It is basically a build that falls into the category of not being a super strong counter to most builds, but it's also not terrible against most builds either. So it's a very good, very safe, easy to execute middle of the ground build. And then later on, if we get the chance, we'll talk about some general matchup concepts. So as always, you will want to go ahead and build probes till 8 and build a pylon on 8. That's probably, in terms of supply, those are some of those early supplies are really the only numbers you need to be super concerned with memorizing. But you should know to build a pylon on 8, and then as soon as the pylon finishes, you're going to build a gateway on that will correspond to 10 supply. And as always is the rule, never stop making probes. That's super important. Probes, 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 probes. If you don't make enough probes, you won't have enough resources, and all of a sudden the other guy will be making 3 times as many units every moment as you are, and he'll show up with an army with like 30 dragoons and 20 zealots, and you'll have like 10 zealots and be like, oh, well, that sucks. So yeah, probes, probes, probes. Gateway on 10, and then on 12 you'll take your gas, or on 11 if you have that probe queued up. Basically, you want to take the gas as soon as you can without stopping probe production right after you build your gateway. Don't get it before the gateway, it's a little bit too fast. And then the next building you want to build is a core, and in PvP you have a few choices. In terms of like safeness versus greediness. The safest thing to do is to do a zealot, and then get a core, and then get a second zealot. Or I guess you want to be ridiculously safe, although this is like only if you scouted and the guy is doing something ridiculous. You would go 2 zealots, get your core, and then make a zealot. But normally you can go zealot, core zealot, or you can make the core first and then make a zealot, or if you're feeling really bold, you can just skip the zealot altogether. In this game, I opted to go for a core first and then build a zealot, so it's a core zealot build. And then after that, you'll need a second pylon. In PvP, a lot of times it's good to put pylons towards the edges of your base because it'll give you view if the opponent is coming in for shuttle harass. And there's one other thing I was going to talk about. Oh, scouting. With this build, it's a very safe build that can kind of handle everything, so it's not that important to scout super quickly. And here's the thing I want to talk about. So if you look here, I got this zealot on the ramp. If you look at the ramp, there's like a crease on the ramp. There's 2 sides that form a little V. A lot of newer players have trouble getting a zealot to block the ramp so the probe can't get up. If you put the zealot at the very center where that V meets, the ramp will always be blocked. So simple little trick that you can make your zealot block the ramp all the time. At least on small maps like on Fighting Spirit and the like. So after you get your after your core finishes, you want to start making a dragoon and research range, and then you want to keep making probes, pylons as needed, and then basically the goal with pylons too is just make them early enough that you don't get supply blocked. So I would say usually 2 to 4 supply early, build a pylon. So if you have out of 25 supply and you get to 21, build a pylon. If you have 35 supply and you're at 31, build a pylon. Somewhere in there will be about right most of the time. And then after that, as you continue to build probes and dragoons, you don't want to stop either one. You will make a robotics facility. If you're really interested in the numbers, that usually comes, I want to say 25, 26. I don't remember off the top of my head. And you can see here, having made a dragoon and everything, I am going to go out and scout. I do at some point want to know where he is. And then I will make that robotics bay here shortly, without cutting any dragoons or probes. And then what you want to do, this is the one time you will cut probes just briefly, is shortly after making the robotics facility. You want to cut probes just long enough to make 2 gateways a little bit faster. So you're going to add gateways 2 and 3, and then you can go ahead and start making probes again. If you're interested in the numbers, that usually happens around 29 or 30 supply. You'll stop those probes and make 2 gateways. That way you'll have 3 gateways and your robotics facility building. So here I am, I'm not making probes. I'm going to put down 2 gateways. And then I will be able to go ahead and continue my dragoon production. Of course, at this point, I am still just kind of looking for where he is, and I'm just setting my goons up on a ramp. Honestly, if you want to come down the ramp in PvP, that's fine. You can even pressure if you're confident in your micro. Just be careful you don't come out too far. If he's doing... You're about to have 3 gateways and a lot of dragoons, but if he did a really fast 2 gateway dragoon build, he could have more dragoons than you at this moment in time. After you get a round of dragoons out from all 3 gateways, that won't be the case, but for the moment there is a slight chance he could have more dragoons than you, especially if you were to attack him at his base. And of course, I guess it should be mentioned that as soon as your robotics facility finishes, you want to make that observatory, and then you'll usually want to make 2 observers to start with. One can go immediately to scout the base, and then the other observer can be left either with your dragoons or back at home in case he is opening with Dark Templar. So you can see I'm coming up here with my probe. I know he's here because I've scouted the other 2 bases. I just want to see what's at the ramp. So I don't see a lot. He's up the ramp and there's just a few units there. So at this point I am thinking either he's doing Dark Templars, so I'm going to be very careful with my obs, or he is going to do something with Reaver and Shuttle. And since he didn't have a lot of dragoons at the ramp, it's possible he's hiding them, but it could just mean he's gone for like pretty quick for a harass. So you can see I'm going to take probes out on the map and build some pylons. And this is just additional scouting to try to give me more vision of what direction a shuttle might come into my base. And then you'll see, if you don't know if there's DT, you can see with the obs, I'm going to go very carefully on the path that a DT would walk. And as that obs is going, I'm going to watch for a DT, because if I miss the DT and he's running past the obs, yes, I have another one on the way, but that DT could run into my base and it could start wreaking havoc before that observer pops out, and then you have to bring everything back and find it's annoying. Now here, I was aware of the possibility of a shuttle. I see the shuttle. I have to bring my dragoons back. I'm going to take my probes and run to the natural base. Now this is an awkward situation here because I don't even really have another base to run to, so they're actually going to want to run back to the main. And then I'm being cute with my dragoons. I try to go to both sides so he can't run the shuttle away, and it works out really good. I'm able to snipe the shuttle, and he drops the Reaver, and in all honesty, he didn't get that many kills. That was a huge win for me. So I'm in a really good position now. I know he can't expand, and I know with the shuttle dead, if he does try to make a Nexus, I can come down there and stop it 100%. He can't go for a Reaver that fast and have more dragoons than a 3-gate build, and having lost the Reaver, that's his main method of defense. And I didn't even lose too many probes. Now, I'm also going to snipe this observer here because I do see it. And one other thing to be aware of is a lot of times I've seen newer players who will play and they will kill a shuttle like that and they'll think, oh good, the harass is over, I'm safe, whatever. Never assume that. Protoss can absolutely make a additional shuttle and come harass you, and if you stop watching the map, you could be in big trouble and look back and all your probes will be dead. Usually once you've made 1 to 2 rounds of goons after the 3-gate, depending on what your opponent is doing, it's usually a good time to expand. Particularly if he's opening a Reaver build. So I'm going to go ahead and build a Nexus, and now I'm feeling pretty good about my position. I know that he's gotten Reavers, so I know that I will need to get Reavers myself. A general rule of PvP is if you open with just Dragoon and your opponent goes for Reavers, at some point, if you expand, you will need to get Reavers yourself, or else you will have a very, very difficult time dealing with it. So I am transitioning here. I'm cutting Dragoons a little bit to get those Reavers out. And then now that I saw that he wasn't making a Nexus, I know that another shuttle is a possibility, especially since he's going to be now behind in Nexus. So I'm just going to take my Dragoons and go sit back at home. And then if he tries to expand, I can worry about denying his expansion, but I'm already in a good place. I also saw with my Dragoon at the bottom, I saw a probe sneaking out. This is another thing you have to be really aware of, and you can see right here. So he's got no base, and he's aware of this, so he wants to go take a hidden base. And of course I saw cannons building at the top of the ramp, which is the thing that made me really suspicious. And if Protoss has a forge like that, what he can do is he can go build a base up on one of those top ramps, put a few pylons, put 4 or 5 cannons up there, and there is no way you can get at it. Additionally, if you run across the map for that and spend all your time attacking those cannons, he can run his army right up to your base and counterattack when you have no units. So not only will you not break his base, your whole main base will get destroyed in the process. So that's something to be aware of. Always, always, always be scouting those bases, because it's really easy to lose games to an opponent that just sneaks over there with a probe, makes some pylons, and all of a sudden he has 2 bases, or 3 when you think he's got like 1. And I'll be honest, I've lost that way a lot of times. It's not a very good feeling way to lose. So at this point, you can just macro up. Now, standard PvP, if everything's normal, you'd usually go to 4 gates, and then you would get your Citadel, and take your second gas. And then once you have 4 gates in the Citadel, you would add 2 more gateways and get your Templar Archives after 6 gates. Again, it's Brood War. There's no hard and fast rules. Okay, we see here he's harassing again. I run the probes. And then this is where you just got to be careful. If you can snipe the shuttle, it's great, but if there's a lot of Reavers, you got to be careful. But here I do get the shuttle, so that's another huge win for going really bad for him. He hasn't gotten any probes, hardly at all. I've gotten both of his shuttles, both of his reavers. That's a lot of cost for him, not a lot of damage. I've got 2 reavers of my own. I'm making a shuttle, and so I know that he's going to be expanding at this point. So as much damage as he has done, I want to go put on some pressure here at some point. So I'm just making more gateways. I'm adding my citadel, and then I'll go pressure with the reavers. Now you wouldn't have to. You are ahead. You could just take a third. You got a lot of options. You'll just have to learn what works for you. Reavers are... We'll talk a little bit about reaver control, but I'll finish talking about standard PvP because that's important. So if the game's totally standard, nothing's happening, no super aggressive attacks, 4 gateways, get a citadel, add 2 more gateways for a total of 6, then get your Templar Archives and start Storm, and then get a 3rd base. As a general rule of thumb, 3rd base off 6 gates is pretty safe, pretty normal. Faster than that, usually pretty risky. Again, I can't go into all the different situations. You'll sort of have to learn them for yourself, but that's a good standard rule. You'll almost never go completely wrong that way. It might not be optimum, but it won't ever result in disaster for you. Alright, so now with the Reaver, the goal of the Reaver here is you have to be careful with it. You want to keep it kind of near your Dragoon so he doesn't snipe it, and you just want to get off some free shots with the Reaver. But you have to be really careful, keep the shuttle close, keep the Reaver close, because if any of them get too far in front and they get killed, then they are easily sniped. Like if you get too far up front, they're easily sniped, and if you lose both those reavers, your attack just totally ends. You cannot bust into reavers without either an overwhelming advantage or reavers of your own. And the other thing that's hard to do but really important, try to focus on continuing to build units and probes while you're doing this. That's one of the dangers of reavers, is they are so time consuming and require such attention that it's really easy to pay too much attention to the reaver and get nothing done. That was bad. See, I took a shot for no reason. My shuttle's a little too far away. But it's really easy to pay too much attention to the Reaver and all of a sudden have a ton of minerals and be in a really bad spot. So here he gets the Reaver, which wasn't good, but I still get off a couple more shots, and I've done a lot of damage. I don't see his Reaver, so I run in here, and I'm just going to go for it. Now, if you get the chance, snipe his Reaver. Don't be too obsessive about it, but sniping the Reaver, it's much better to target the Reaver than the other Dragoons. And now I realize I've broken through, and GG. And I think that about covers it for the basic build and concepts of PvP for this tutorial. So just remember the build, and then 4 gates, Citadel, 2 more gates, Templar Archives, then expand. Thanks for watching.